And we're live. Hello, Izzy.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself, Greg?
Oh, I'm doing very well, thank you. I just had a chicken stir fry. Oh, I can also hear the echo of the live stream. I'm an idiot. I thought I did this better. There we go. We're good. Okay. I had the other window open so I could hear myself. I'm an actual fool. I thought that I knew how to do live streams, but clearly it's been a year since I've done them. So
Bring live streams back.
Fine. Bring them back. Hashtag live stream culture. Hashtag tweet. Hashtag tweet.
Retweet. Cool.
So, Izzy, for this particular live stream, we're going to be discussing music, musical theory, and most importantly, key changes.
The most important part of music theory.
Absolutely. Do you want to give a little background as to why we're doing this live stream? What happened this morning?
Okay, so actually what happened was that Tom Rosenthal tweeted out saying that whenever he heard a key change, he whispered key change as if it was like a bless you to when someone sneezes. And I replied saying, oh, I do this too. Ever since I found out what key changes were in Eurovision. Every single key change I hear religiously, I'm like, key change! I don't know, there's just something satisfying about it. So then Greg replied going, what is a key change, I think? And we realized that you didn't realize what a key is, which is a stumbling block to not understanding what a key change is. So we thought, yeah, I could give you a little rundown of really, really basic music theory, because that's fun times.
Hell yeah. So a little background on myself. I tried to learn guitar when I was a teenager. Tried being the operative term because I very quickly realized that what I was learning wasn't how to play guitar or how to play music. It was how to recite from memory the finger patterns that a song required. So I was essentially just learning to dance on a guitar's neck. There was no listening involved. I wasn't really learning anything about the musical side of things. And so that, due to a couple of other reasons, I ended up giving up guitar. And also, I never really listened to music when I was young. I only really picked it up during my teenage years. And my appreciation of it is very, very limited, due to just a combination of things. I think I'm pretty tone deaf, for one.
We will find out.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I wanted to ask, what is music? Because I've never heard of it.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's such a difficult question to answer. I mean, on a very scientific basis, it's notes, or not even notes, frequencies, isn't it? Which sound different notes and sound cool, and it makes us feel things. Though it is interesting that humans have a remarkably good hearing for music. They've done research into this, and they haven't worked out why we make music. There's no real reason for it, but we do, and we have a remarkably good hearing for the fact we can hear the difference between and everything and stuff in between. That is quite kind of remarkable, but they haven't worked out why. So
right, that's
just for the fun times.
So do no other animals do music in the same way?
As far as, well, I think some animals use rhythms, but I'm going to stop there because this is where my knowledge runs out.
So what is music to you?
Oh, I don't know. I think music's one of those things for me that's just an absolute staple. I grew up, well, actually, I did medieval and Tudor reenactment. So my main
gateway drug to music, as many have said.
As we all know, yeah. So, well, also, that was a big thing. So that was me first sort of playing music. But I was very, very lucky in that my mum took me to a lot of operas and a lot of concerts. I grew up listening to Mozart. Apparently, I went up to a primary school teacher who had put some classical music on, and I went, "Is this Mozart?" And I was about 6 years old, and the teacher was like, "Yes, have you heard this before?" And I said, "No, I haven't heard it before, but it sounds like Mozart." So yeah, that was my kind of upbringing. So yeah, it's been a huge part of my life to the point where I sort of don't realise it's there almost. It's just, yeah.
Sound, because you do have a piano.
It's not actually mine. Right. We kind of accidentally stole it. Not entirely. Well, okay, no. What happened was we were asked by a friend to look after it for 2 years whilst they were in Dubai, and then they never came back. So
from Dubai?
Yeah. So I've just still
Are you sure they're still alive?
No, they're still alive. Just they didn't come back for their piano. So.
Oh, okay. Sure, I guess.
But yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that like not every family has a piano. Most families can have a musical instrument, but it's typically like a recorder, a ukulele, maybe.
I've got about 5 recorders if you're fancy.
But I can play hot cross buns. That's one thing I can't do.
Well, yeah. So I started learning violin as a child because I found my dad's violin in the attic, and apparently I was playing away on that. So they started giving me lessons. Then I changed. I also had piano lessons. Taught myself recorder. Then the main thing was that I then changed to singing lessons, and I did that up to I was 18 when I took my last exam, which was my grade 8, which is the top exam before you get into like really professional stuff. And as part of taking grade 8 singing, I had to do grade 5 music theory, which I'm not gonna lie, I hated, but that's because it's grade 5, and by that point, it's getting really complicated and boring and stupid. But at this simple stage, it's fine.
Sound. That wasn't a pun, but now I can't ever use that.
You can't unhear it.
Yeah, good. I'll have to control myself. So I'm going to ask a few questions.
Cool.
And feel free at any point if the question is kind of a bit stupid or challenging for the weird reasons to just say because, or that's just the way it is, or it's completely arbitrary, Greg, stop quizzing me. Feel free. So I understand that a musical instrument produces notes, right? I'm not
top notch.
Cool.
Good so far.
And a piano is fairly, or a keyboard, I suppose, is a fairly good way of displaying them, because like with a guitar, you got 6 strings and it depends on how you do each string. With a piano, there's just buttons, right? Keys. We got it. Perfect.
Yeah. So don't get like confused with a musical key.
Yeah.
Then we're going to get very confused. They just happen to be called keys. Let's call them. Yeah, let's call them buttons for now.
Yeah,
so we
for
don't.
all intents and purposes, they're buttons.
Yeah.
And each button corresponds to a different musical note. So far, so good. My first question: why are there only 7 notes?
I can answer that because
there's a lot more than 7 buttons.
Yes. Right. So what happens? I don't know the scientific reasons for this, but essentially these 2 notes, they have different frequencies, but they have a harmonic frequency or something like. If you look at the frequencies, they sort of match up. Somehow they're parallel. I don't know the science, but it means that they are
That's the squiggly line you see on a graph, kind of.
Yeah,
right? Cool.
That's getting really, really technical. But basically, these 2 notes, can you hear how they're the same? They're just one's higher than the other. So if I played these 2, they're not the same. Whereas these 2, it's the same note, just an octave apart.
Okay.
And you have that as many times as you want. You can do that all the way up and all the way down. So you've got, that's all the same note. It's a C. It's the same note, but in different, yeah, that is kind of hard to explain. It's the same note, but different, I was going to say heights. One's higher than the other.
I suppose you could say that those notes rhyme.
Yes, that's exactly what they do. The only problem is you might want to say that these notes rhyme and they're different. But I think, I think rhyme is a good way of thinking of it. Like they are kind of the same, but they're just different levels. And
For context, to any viewer, both myself and Izzy have poetry background. So that's hence the metaphor.
Yeah. And so basically the reason you're saying, you know, there's 7, there is only 7. It goes from C, which is confusing, but it goes C.
Surely it should start at A.
I don't know why.
That's probably just arbitrary.
Well, it's because it's the middle C, and it's not because it's the beginning. It's because it's the middle.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's something to do. That's an A, so that's A to A, but C to C is with the one that you normally hear. Now there is a proper reason for. Now I think about it, that I think it's probably because C major is kind of like the standard key, for want of a better word. So that's why we start on C, and that's
okay,
quote unquote start.
Fine. So
and yeah, so this
white dude decided that was the way it's done, so now that's the way it's done. Is probably the answer.
Actually, yeah, no, yeah, I was going to say possibly not, because it's to do with because music's a remarkably natural thing.
Right.
It sounds right, but in fairness, this is Western music, and in other cultures, they would have different scales that sound perfectly natural to them, and that's why traditional music from across the world can sound quite different, because they are using different scales. So yeah, there's only 7 notes because there's more than 7 notes, but for now, let's refer to it as 7 notes. Because
the letters used from the alphabet are A to G, right?
Yeah.
Yes. 7 letters.
7. But yeah, and it's because the reason there's only 7 is because you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're back to the beginning.
Okay, cool.
It's the same note. So that's why there's only 7 notes.
Cool. I suppose from there is why, this is probably entirely arbitrary, but it's fun to ask, why letters and not numbers? Why is it not a 1 sharp?
Because I suspect this is known as C3, I think. Yes, that's a C3, C4, C5, and it's C2, C1, C0. Okay. So the numbers are used to indicate I keep wanting to say the height of the note, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like the highness of the note.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fair. And this is a very piano-specific question, but why are there black notes and white keys? Black keys and white keys? Because
so I've been playing to you in tones, but in between those you've got semitones, and that's what the black notes are for on the piano. Well, that's not entirely true, but
for a crash course, that's a reasonable explanation.
Yeah. Basically, the black notes are the other notes in between. I think the reason it's laid out like that on a piano is just because it makes it easier to play. If every single note was laid out as a white key, it would be very hard to know where you are on the piano.
And also you'd need a very long reach.
Yes. So if you've got the black keys going up, it just means that you can kind of maneuver easily between them.
Okay, cool.
Given we're at the beginning of the live stream, I should point out I am not a good pianist. I had basic lessons as a child. I've taught myself since then, and it's basically just been going ponky, ponky, ponky. So you're going to hear some bad piano playing today, but I should be able to do enough to explain things.
Cool, excellent. I'm not sure how much preamble I should do before the ultimate question that inspired this. So what do you think are the steps between playing? Oh, let's go for it. What is a chord?
What? Oh, I need to explain what a key is before I get to a chord.
Oh, okay, that's news to me. I thought it went like notes, chords, keys in terms of complex.
In many ways, it goes keys, chords, notes.
Oof, blimey, okay.
It depends on the way you look at it, because that's the thing. As you were saying, when you learn guitar, you can, and plenty of people do, you can just learn the chords. But in terms of understanding how the chords are interacting with each other and why certain chords sound good and certain chords sound bad and some chords sound really funky, it helps to understand the key, because you get chords within a key.
Okay, so
that's the way I'm going to explain it.
Yeah, before we go on to chords, then let's let's crack this barrel right open. What is a key?
Okay, exciting times. So a key is essentially a set of notes that a song is played with. So if you played a song with every single note on the piano, it would sound really messy, right? And it would just sound, I mean, it would sound like modern jazz. Oh, I'm gonna reveal
Take
some.
that, La La Land.
That's not modern jazz. That's mock traditional jazz.
Oh, I see.
I'm
Wasn't
not
the plot point in that
salty.
movie where he didn't like the modern stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, because modern jazz is all the stuff that's like, and it's just
Crikey.
crap. Sorry, gonna make some enemies if I do that. Anyway, so yeah, a key is a set of notes in which it is sort of acceptable to play a song. So I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff in C major, which is all the stuff where it's just the white notes. If you use any of the black notes, the black keys, it sounds wrong. The reason is I've been playing it a few times with the C major scale. I can play anything within those notes and it will sound right. Well, right-ish.
It'll sound intentional.
Right? It kind of sounds a bit messy because I haven't written a song that was me just plonking on a piano.
Right.
But it sounds kind of in the right place. Whereas if I start going, that is all wrong.
Right, okay.
Bad.
So,
because it's outside of the key.
Right. By way of comparison, I'm thinking in terms of poetry, so you can think of the meter, perhaps. So Once Upon a Midnight Dreary, that, because it sticks to that, what's it called? Trochaic pentameter, or whatever the technical term for that one is. It's a trochee, certainly. I can't remember how many feet were in that meter. When you stick to that syllabic structure, it sounds right. Yeah. But if you were to say, once upon I can't break for it now, once upon a midnight that I didn't like.
Yeah.
Then it just sounds, you've messed up, even though it's all freestyle. Yeah.
It's perhaps not the best metaphor because that is talking about rhythm. Yeah. And obviously you have rhythm in music as well. But for purposes of this, you are right, that it's what would feel kind of wrong. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do stuff that is wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, you've got the key, and what does that stretch from again? Well,
that's the octave, so it's the same thing as before, where the same notes, and that's when the black keys start to come into play, because in other keys you start to use them, right?
Okay,
versus. Right. And yeah, that was, I just played D major and then I played C major.
Okay. So what is an octave? Just for the continuation of this, what is octave. A thing? Because that comes from the word octo, meaning 8.
Exactly. Simple.
Okay, cool.
So to just sort of explain it a little bit further, because I think it's kind of necessary, because obviously you might be thinking, okay, so that's fine. You can play all these notes within that. How do you... But I hear wrong notes. I hear funky stuff. I do hear people going, or what, that was terrible. You would not do that. But you do hear people, using other notes. And they are called accidentals because they're quote unquote accidents. And these are notes that go outside of the scale, outside of the key. So it is allowed. You can do it, but you have to be careful about it because on the whole, it's going to sound wrong. But if you choose the correct ones, it can sound really jazzy, or it can sound minor. And what I've been playing now has been the major keys. They're the happy keys. They're the ones we're used to hearing, I suppose. And if I asked you to improvise singing, you would probably sing in a major key. When people do vocal warm-ups, they always sing in a major key because it's just a lot more natural. And minor keys are essentially major keys with agreed upon accidentals. It's really complicated because there's lots of different kinds of minor keys, and to really understand minor keys, oh my god, I know. It's a mess. But essentially, minor keys are going wrong on purpose in a way that everyone's gone, yes, that is a minor key, a particular minor key. There's different kinds, but yeah. So I think it's helpful to understand that yes, you can go outside of the key, you can go outside of the scale and the set of notes. That's the set of notes. Don't play them all at once. It's not how you make music, but you play them in an order. So you can go outside of that set of notes as long as you do it in the right way, or an artistic way.
Okay, fair. So in terms of this is where the questions become a bit more complex, but also far less informed, because the most basic of people can ask, like, what is a note and what is it good for? But when we get further on and I'm equally less informed, my questions have to sort of step up, but I'm not sure if I'm asking the right questions. So this is going to be fun. But when you are making a song or deconstructing a song, say, why would you choose a certain key?
It's technically completely arbitrary. You can do any key you want. Things tend to end up in different keys according to maybe the range of the singer. Perhaps they want to technically challenge themselves and do some different chords. If you look at classical music, and when it's always saying, oh, this so-and-so in D minor or so-and-so in F major, I mean, I don't know why they did that, but it's just because if you always did it in C major and you always used these 8 notes, it would just get very boring. And sometimes you want to use these notes. And it's also, it might be to do with the instruments that you're using, because certain brass instruments are very strange because they only play in certain keys, or they have a limited range of notes. Like pianos, it's very easy to play in any key, but certain instruments, it's easier to play in some.
Right.
And here's a fun fact: it's easier to sing in flat keys. I don't know why. Nobody really knows, but it just kind of feels nicer. And if you're going to go out of tune, you tend to go out of tune into a flat key. So, yeah, there's no real reason other than instruments, really.
Because what I have heard is people often make fun of some songs that are played on guitar, but just sticking to the same 3 chords.
There we go.
So
yeah, that's the basis of right there.
What's like a basic song kind of thing? Why would people complain about that?
I think people complain about it because those 4 chords, I think they actually originated in it's called canon. Is it Percival's canon? I think I've said his name wrong, but there's a very famous classical piece that you would recognize if I play it. You would instantly. It's one of those somebody's canon. Anyway, I think that's actually one of the first uses of those 4 chords. It's C major, F major, G major, A minor, C. I think people complain about it just because it's so prevalent. And you can use any combination of chords, and yes, they're the ones that have sort of become very well known. Hallelujah, that's the big one. What's his name?
I don't recall, but
Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
The Shrek song.
Hallelujah. That he did the 4 chords, and everyone's done it since because it kind of sounds really natural and it feels really right, and it's always easy to do a happy pop song. And the funny thing is that sometimes you think, oh, it's not in the same 4 chords, except it is, but in a different key. So it's just because that particular pattern is just very natural.
Okay, that's fair. Now, when it comes to in our original tweet discussion, we did have the lovely Amal help us out slightly by filming a piece of where she was exasperatedly just sort of teaching me what a key change was. Bless her heart. And I struggled to, like, she explained it very, very clearly.
Yeah.
And yet my brain was going, huh?
It's because she jumped straight to the key change, and I think your problem was that you didn't understand what a key was. Right. But yeah, I agree. She did explain it very well.
Cool. So I have a basic grasp of what a key change is, but do you want to go over that for the benefit of the audience?
What a key? Well, I was going to explain what chords, or how chords work within a key.
Yeah.
Because it makes it easier to explain what a key change is.
By all means, go ahead.
Okay. Cool. I've got notes, you know. I've gone full teacher mode. So chords. So you know how I said that a key is a certain selection of notes that sound right together and are okay to be played. Chords are basically any combination of notes using those selected notes. So the ones I've been playing, you know, I can use any of those notes, but what people tend to use are these ones. Right? But you could actually play
That sounds mysterious.
So they are all chords, because a chord is just more than one note played at the same time, right? And they are all chords within the key of C because they use notes that are within the C scale.
Right. So, and
I can play them in any order. I can literally do whatever I want.
Theoretically, based on that information, there's an infinite number of chords.
Yes. Because these are the basic. These ones are called triads because it's going right, and it's just sort of sounds right and nice, and it's what everything uses. But I could do or. And they all have names on guitar. This is where you really come across them when you're playing guitar, because you'll have things like A minor sus7, and that is because it's A minor, and then you've got a suspended seventh. Jesus Christ, that is, I think that. I don't know. It's kind of hard, and it's all to do with like what number the notes are. That's kind of I'm getting too complex. But yeah, you can have any chord at all.
Excellent. And there's just sort of an agreed collection of them that you use, I guess.
The triad one is kind of considered the basic chord because it's part of the arpeggio. Because within this
I've heard of that word.
Arpeggio. That's just when you go. And
so what was that in terms of like what your fingers are doing there? Because in case anyone can't quite make that out.
They're just so basically I'm playing the, how do I put this? The important notes within a scale, because you know how I've been playing all of them. The ones that sort of stick out, and it's like there's the skeleton of all of this is the flesh. All of that stuff, it's the flesh, but this is the skeleton that holds the scale, holds the key together, because everything will be, you know, when you finish the song, you do all the stuff and you come back to this note, right? So I'm just playing the important notes in the scale when I do that in an arpeggio.
Right. Okay. Sure. I'll see what I can do with that information. Yeah, where were we before I interrupted with arpeggios? We were on chords.
Yes.
And moving. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, I was going to explain next about. So a chord is it's actually very good that you asked about the arpeggio, because when I was just explaining about the skeleton notes, right? Mm-hmm. This one is the bass note, the key note. I'm going to call it the home note, just because I think it's a nice way of thinking of it. Because it kind of, that's when you feel like you're coming home. So you can go off. You can go off and do all these things, but as long as you come back to, you feel like you've come home, because it's the most important note of the chord. And in this case, the key. So a chord is named after the bass note in the chord. And it doesn't matter what the top fingers are doing. They could be going there, but it still would be considered an F chord because it's based on the F. So you've got the C chord, the F chord, the G chord, the A minor, and C. So it's all within the key of C because they're still using purely the notes from the key of C. Does that make sense? Yeah. But the bass notes of each chord, the reason they have different names is because it's being named after the bass note of the chord. I realize it's a little bit tricky. Does that make sense though?
Yeah, I'm getting it. I'm also having a brief look at the chat where we have Matty and Jamie both leaving comments. First of all, Matty just asked you to do piano videos.
I cannot play piano, so bless you, Matty, but you don't want to see that.
And Jamie's also just having some says the poetry metaphors are actually really accurate, so I'm glad to know that they're helpful.
Yeah, I think they are a good way of thinking of it.
We also have Patchel Bull. Is that the tonic?
Yes. Look at you go. It is the tonic. I'm glad that you've remembered. It's wait. This is really I've forgotten. It's amazing how much I've forgotten. I think that's the tonic note. It's the bass note, the home note. It's called the tonic.
Yes. In brackets, Jamie has now commented the home note. Is that the tonic? Okay.
Yeah, because they've all got names.
Right.
It's kind of mathematical because it's like, oh, the tonic and the supertonic and the no, I can't remember. I can't remember their names. Oh, my singing teacher would be disgusted with me. But they all have names, and that is indeed the tonic.
Excellent. Okay.
But I'm going to call it the home note because I just think it's a good image to have in your mind as you try and understand it. Yeah. So I'm going to call it home.
Yeah, because tonic has no clear meaning to someone who doesn't know anything about it. Whereas a home note, you're returning home. It feels familiar. It's a base. It's a core. That makes sense. Yeah. What were we gonna mention next? What comes next from that?
We're going on to key changes. Excellent. Are you ready?
I'm so excited.
So we've done all the. You understand now how there's chords within a key, and they have different names, and so forth. Now, like I said, so the reason I keep using these same 4 is because it's just easiest to demonstrate. So they're chords that have been sort of decided that they sound nice. But those chords, the pattern of the chords, can be used in any key, right? So the pattern of the bass notes, the pattern of the home note is, and then you add the chords to that. And you can basically just put that pattern in any key. So I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I did that wrong. Let's go back to the 3 chords because so you've got the 3 chords where they go, but then you go up a key. Do you see it's the same pattern?
Mm-hmm.
But it's in a different key. It's a different set of notes that you're allowed to use.
Right. So in terms of, again, what your fingers are doing, what is like the location difference of when you change key, where do you move?
It depends what key you're changing to. Okay. Because I could go from here down to...
Because it doesn't look like you're moving all that far. And you're obviously repeating same note presses. I'm refraining from using the word key here to refer to 2 different things. And so that could, especially to a beginner such as myself, it could throw you off as to like, oh, but you're playing the same notes?
Yeah, I admit on the screen you probably can't see much of a difference, but you only need to go one button across to get to the new bass note. So that's why it's not
So
very
it's
different.
dependent entirely on the... Right.
So I don't know how much you're going to be able to see, but the difference between C and D is actually quite a good one, because in C it's on the white notes, all on the white notes here, not going anywhere near the black notes. But when I start going into D, I start using this black note here. So it goes, and also this black note. Yeah?
Okay, right.
So it totally depends, in terms of where you move to, it's going to depend on the key. If I was a better piano player, I would show you more diverse keys.
Well, yeah,
I'll get to that.
So now we've established what a key change is. What does it do? What kind of an effect would it have on a song?
Well, it tends to sound really well. They tend to go up. The keys tend to go up. I don't think I've ever come across a song that goes down. Certainly not in pop songs. But they generally lift the song. It's again, we're going back to these natural instincts about humans. Don't know why. It just kind of makes it sound like you've gone, yeah, and you're going a little bit further up.
I have noticed that anytime a song sort of really hits its stride or whatever, it sounds just, I'm trying to use very non-musical words here. It just sounds a lot grander. It sounds like the life has been put into it.
Yeah, it's confused a little bit by the fact that you wouldn't very often have a key change and nothing to go with it. Quite often you have, extra instruments thrown in, maybe some more harmonies, like a bigger sound. So it's kind of, you've got the key change as well as other things. So it kind of gets a bit confusing. In the case of Eurovision, it tends to be accompanied by fireworks. That's the moment where stuff goes off, right? It's the moment where it's like, yeah, final big chorus and we've gone up a key. It's also just a good way of making it sound different. You quite often see it in songs that are quite simplistic. If they're quite repetitive, they'll all have been in the same key, but then they'll go up again because it kind of makes it sound different. It's kind of a little bit of a trick that it makes the song sound like it's changed, but technically it hasn't. It's just gone up a few notes.
Right. Okay. Something that kind of related would be, aside from the kind of human psychology thing of not being able to unnotice something, why, Tom Rosenthal and yourself, why would you point out when a key change occurs as opposed to when anything else could occur? What is it about a key change that makes you go, haha, I noticed you?
I don't know. I think key changes are quite they're very often associated with cheesy pop songs. This is why I keep talking about Eurovision, because Eurovision is full to the brim of key changes, or at least it used to be. Now it's full of ballads, but like every second song has a key change because it's just the kind of the pop thing. So I think it's like a little bit of a joke. I think I do it as a kind of like, hey, lol, it's another key change, because it's a basic ass song. Like you can just feel them coming, and you can just tell. Yeah, I think that's mainly it. It's just kind of funny almost that they're doing another key change.
Okay, that's
there's no reason. It's just fun to do, because I think it's you can get changes in music, but you wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, there's an extra horn, because that's getting quite technical. Whereas a key change, you can recognize it instantly. You don't need to know a lot about music necessarily to be able to recognize. Like you'd have to be really listening to notice that they bring in an extra harmony or bring in another instrument or change the melody or something. But if they do a key change, it's just this sudden bam, it's changed, and I can notice it and I can announce it in a stupid way.
Okay, cool. No, I get that. I've learned so much in the past 45 minutes. And I'm sure I'm going to go on to learn a lot more. What else do we have in the notes? I know that we have the Beyonce thing, and I'm building to that. So is there anything else that we need to really understand before moving on to Beyonce?
Well, so what I'm gonna be using Beyonce to basically explain how to spot a key change. So you can also be one of those annoying people that goes, key change. But before I do that, this might not be the most interesting thing to listen to, but I think I'm just gonna go up some keys on the piano just so you can get an idea of what it sounds like when you have a key change. So I'm gonna play the chords. Same old 3 chords, I'm afraid. I could be more interesting, but I'm not gonna. Sorry. Yeah, I'll play the chords so you can kind of get the feel, because that's the thing, you get the feel for a key. If I play a bunch of chords, if I played a bunch of chords and then told you to sing, you would sing it in key because you've got this feel for the notes that you've been given. So yeah, I'm just gonna try playing the chords up, and I'll go up a few key changes. Shout if you get really bored. Also, the way I'm going to play it, I'm going to be emphasizing the bass note. So you might want to listen out to how the bass note is moving around.
Okay.
Sorry. Are you starting to hear it?
Okay.
Yeah? You know how it's kind of going up each time? And
Right.
it sounds kind of like, whoo, okay. Yeah?
Okay.
I know,
Yeah.
I realized I played it wrong a few times.
That's entirely fine.
Would it help if I did that again, but maybe said key change at the point? Or were you getting it a little bit?
I was kind of getting it.
Okay.
Like, it definitely requires a feel for it. I'm trying to think of a comparable metaphor, but it's like changing gears on a bike.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Because when you sort of did that motion of the key change, you can when you change the gear on a bike, like you do the click, and then you can feel the chain like hop. And it's the same motions, but then you can just feel that shift, and it's still the same motions, but there's a different pace to it almost.
Yeah, that is a perfect metaphor. You're much better at explaining this than I am. Yeah, that's absolutely bang on. It's you're doing the same thing, and in this case, you're doing the exact same chords, but you've changed gear, and that's actually the important thing to note, because in a song you will have the same set of chords. That's the wrong way of saying it. So you know how I said you could play any chord within it,
right?
In the key. If I changed key and then also started playing different chords, that would just sound like you've started playing a new song.
Okay.
You need to be playing like this pattern. You need to keep playing that pattern, because otherwise it's just going to be all over the place.
Okay.
That's because the chords are what makes the song. The chords are the structure for the melody to be built around. So if you start playing different chords, you're going to have to start singing a different melody, and there we end up with a completely different song instead of just a key change.
Right. Okay. That's almost where the bike metaphor falls apart, because like you can kind of adjust that in that when you're pedaling, you want to maintain a certain pace of the pedals, because then when you make the gear change, it sort of stops the chain from falling off. But if you like start pedaling a lot slower, and I realize in music it's nothing to do with the tempo, but in what you said, but for the purpose of metaphor, if you start pedaling at a very erratic pace, when you do a gear change, the chain can fall off, and suddenly you've crashed, split your head open, and it was a massive failure. Why did you even try? Go home and never pick up a bike again. This is hitting quite hard home. I can ride a bike, it's okay.
It's a very extended metaphor, but it absolutely works. Yeah, it is that idea of if you started doing something different with the bike, it wouldn't work. or at
You
least
need that
it
familiarity.
it would sound weird, or
Yeah.
feel weird, or you'd start doing strange
In
things.
order
So, yeah.
to change one thing, something else needs to stay the same. Otherwise, what have you done?
Yes, you've made a modern jazz.
Or you've made, I love it, I love this attack on modern jazz. Or what you've done is you've made Matt Smith's era of Doctor Who. And here is another extended metaphor. Do you remember, I don't know how big of a Doctor Who fan you are.
Excuse me. I have a Fez upstairs. Just gonna warn you.
Okay. Do you remember when Matt Smith first came into it and so many fans dropped it? Just dropped the show.
Because they tried to make him like David Tennant. He was missold and I felt sorry for him.
Fair. But it wasn't just the actor that changed. They changed, if you look into the history, it's really, really cool, but they changed pretty much the entire creative team. The showrunner, if you can look at the episodes side by side and you can see the lighting, the camera work, everything about the show feels different. And the only things that really carried over were maybe the music, the name Doctor Who, and the fact that the TARDIS exists. It's a basically different show, and a lot of people. I'm just
going to say, if anyone's tuning in at this point, they're going to be like, "How did we get here for music?"
And that's what I feel is, and this is where I completely derailed the live stream. This is, I feel, what's happening with the new series that's coming out, because we've got a new showrunner, we've got a new actor team, we've got a new set of writers. I'm very intrigued to see what happens. But back to music. Beyonce. Tell me about Beyonce.
So Beyonce, in her iconic song Love on Top, does, I think, 4 key changes. And this is why when people are singing along, they're like, do, 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 and then they're fine. But by the time you get to the end, they're like, do, 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 and they can't sing the notes because it's all too high. So I've already covered that, so I'm looking at my notes again.
By all means.
What I'm going to do is essentially, I'm going to play the song to you, as long as my phone doesn't die. And I'm then going to find the home note. And I'll just, if I sing the home note along with the song, you'll see what I mean.
Okay. I mean, I'm really excited for this.
Because you'll see what I mean about how the key changes and how it's not just like a random changes. It's the whole structure of the song is kind of being shifted up a gear. Where is Love on Top? Come on, I had you up. Oh, there we are. I'm going to have this in my head for the rest of the day.
Not a bad thing when
it's
Beyonce, I suppose. I can hear it, yes.
Good. So.
And this is where the copyright strikes come in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll try and talk over it. But like,
I do not monetize my content at all. It is.
So this is in. I think it's actually in the key of C because I tried to work this out earlier. But right. Did you see there how I sang the same note throughout and it didn't sound wrong at any point?
Correct. I understand that. Yes.
Yes. That's because it's the home note. It's the bass note, the tonic. It's the key. Whatever note that is, I think it's a C. It's a C. It's a C. It's in C. Because that home note that works throughout, the home note will always sound right. Even if it sounds a little bit crunchy, it will always sound right. And so, yeah, that's the basic note. That is the key.
The fact that you were just able to go, I'm going to sing C and do it baffles me.
I bet, no, you would be able to do it too. If I played a song and I said, find a note that sounds, I mean, when I sat here doing this earlier, when I was practicing, I did have to kind of go, ha, 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 and eventually I found it when it feels right. But if I played a song to you and I said, sort of find a note that feels bang on, you would be able to find it because she's probably coming back to that note all the time in the melody because the melody is probably going, da 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 da. There we go. Da, 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 da. That like key note is keeps coming back. You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I'll try in my day-to-day life.
You should.
um,
Just sit there and wait until you find a note that sounds right all the time.
yeah, exactly.
Obviously, choose a basic pop song, because if you try to do this with Bowie, good freaking luck to you, because Bowie is one of those cases where he, especially Life on Mars. I once saw a program that analyzed Life on Mars, and he's an absolute genius, because God knows what freaking key it's in, because the chords are all over the place, and that's what makes it sound so interesting. Because like you have three chords, and if someone was to play the next chord that would sound obvious, you'd go, oh, it's that next, and then Bowie's like, nope, over here, and he just completely fucks with it, and that's so don't try with a Bowie song, but if you put on some Beatles or Jason Mraz, people like that, what are they called, but Scouting for Girls, Scouting for Girls have the same three chords and everything. If you put on one of their songs, you'd be able to find the keynote without a doubt.
Brilliant. I'll give it a go. So yeah, where are we now? We've got the basics of yeah. Let's carry on with Beyonce.
Okay, so basically what I'm going to do, was the level okay in terms of you being able to hear my note and hear the song? When
Yes,
I did
that was really good volume.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is just play the song, and I'm going to sing the keynote, and then when she changes key, I'll change the keynote, and hopefully you'll see what's happening there. You see? So okay. It's gone up and the keynote has changed. And it's going to do that again soon because this song is just extra. Yeah?
Okay. You know what it feels like is when, okay. Do you remember the Robbie Rotten memes?
No.
The Lazy Town. I forgot the name of the song now. This is awful. What's the name of that song? We Are Number One. There we go. There was this Lazy Town song called We Are Number One, and this meme that originated whereby you would take that song and say, but this. So We Are Number One, but every time they say this word, I do this to the song. And it just bastardizes the song. It becomes incredibly funny and it's brilliant. Just Google We Are Number One meme. It's great. Fun time.
Okay. I missed that one, but
especially prevalent. There's a whole story behind it. The reason it became a meme was because the guy who played the character it was centering about had cancer, and they were trying to like raise awareness so he could raise money. It was a mad time on the internet. And Stefan Carlson has just this past week passed away, so the sort of is resurfacing. Brilliant stuff. But the reason I bring it up was there was one notable case where every time the song would say this certain word, and it would always return to this one word, they would like change something about the song where it would be, maybe it would just go faster, so they double the speed, and then by the end of it, because this would happen say every 30 seconds, and they would loop the song so it would keep on going, and the video would be half an hour long. But by the end of the video, it was so fast paced, and the song was just like done in 2 seconds, and then keep going. It's great. But that sense of urgency would occur. And so you would be listening to it, and every time that happened, this gear shift happened, it would feel a lot more urgent. And you can see this in like some video game tracks where they don't need to like fast forward the song. They just change something about it. They increase something about it. And this is my lack of musical knowledge, where the song would stay the same. This like 10-second loop of music would stay the same, but they changed something where it would feel more urgent.
Mm-hmm.
But
Did you say video games?
Yeah, they use it often.
They probably don't do key changes because that would probably sound too happy.
Right.
I mean, if they did do a key change, it'd probably go down, which is unusual, but they might. What I reckon they do, just knowing a little bit about video music, is they probably add extra beats. So where it was like, you would keep the same tempo, but you would just add some extra beats, and that makes it feel a bit more.
Right, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. But that's what these key changes in Beyonce's song are having that same effect. It's every time she makes a key change, the song feels more urgent. And I keep using that word because I can't think of a better one, but it feels like it's more action-packed and we're doing that kind of thing.
Also, it generally sounds a bit happy, or at least not happier, because it is exactly the same, but it kind of feels like a happiness boost.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa! And like I said, Eurovision, I'm trying to think of a thing, like, it's ironic. I'm sure if I just search for any Eurovision song, I'd probably get a cheap. Oh, I've just thought of one. Yeah, right. I can get a Eurovision song up and I can demonstrate on that. Do keep talking about whatever you want to talk. Just
as you do that. So, and this is where, if anyone in the comments does know a way to describe this, I'd be eternally grateful, because I'm probably describing a very basic concept and just not having the vocabulary to discuss it. But there's a quirk that I've heard a lot of times where you can have a 5-second, 10-second loop of music where, because it's a loop, it doesn't change, but it still feels like it's getting more urgent or quicker or more high-pitched or something. That it's like, you know, that MC Escher painting of the staircase that's always going up, but it's a square staircase. What music can feel like that staircase where you're always going up, but obviously it can go, you're not, because you can go on forever. And I don't know how to describe that, but that's what the Beyonce song feels like to me.
Well, that's because you can't keep going up and then reach a point where you'll have finished, because if I keep doing key changes, eventually I'm going to get back up to C. Now, playing it on the piano, I've ended up an octave higher, but in terms of the set of notes, because obviously when I was saying the set of 8 notes, that's when you're being polite and keeping it within 1 octave. But technically, it's any of those notes within any of these. All of this is in 1 key. So yeah, like you only have, oh no, you have more than 7 keys. But you only have the number of keys that there are notes, and then by the time you've got back to the beginning, like, so it can kind of feel like you're going up, but you are eventually going to kind of loop back down. This is where it's kind of complicated, and it's kind of, that's when you're getting into the science of music, really, in terms of why does it feel like you're going up, even though at some point you're going to be going back down again, but you are still going up, and it's all a bit weird.
Absolute magic, witchcraft, and tomfoolery. Music is beyond me. I love it.
Unfortunately, the song that I wanted to play to you is not available anymore.
Oh, that's so sad.
I don't know if it's because it's Israel.
Sure, just play like, Israel.
If you find it on you, if anyone wants to look it up, it's called Made of Stars, Eurovision 2016. That's got an amazing key change, as far as I remember. And that's, a really good example of typical Eurovision, where they also added in a load of instruments and there was fireworks going off, and it was just like made of stars, and it was just really emotional. Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you have anything else in your list of notes?
In terms of my notes, I think we've covered everything, because you should now be able to. Yeah, that's everything. You should now be able to spot key change.
I can indeed identify a key change. This has changed my life. I started off the day asking, what is sound? And now I know just as much as Beyonce knows. I think we've really broke new ground today, Izzy.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe go back over everything briefly, like summarize everything we've done, so that you can explain it like in summary, and then I can be like, yes, that's right, or no, you've got that slightly wrong.
Let's give it a go. I might need a refresher on what exactly we've covered.
Okay, yeah. So the first thing was, what is a key?
And a key, oh crikey, a key is a collection of notes.
Good.
That all sound correct and purposeful.
Bang on.
Brilliant. And the sort of upper and lower limits of what that is aren't very mathematical or what have you. They just feel right to our ears.
Yes.
Excellent.
I mean, there is actually maths within it. Like,
yeah.
Somebody is looking, but I don't know what the maths are. So
yeah, it's not that there is. It's not like with poetry. In order to have iambic pentameter, you have to have 5 feet, because that's what pentameter means. It's not like that, where that's very rigid and irrespective of emotion. Music is clearly just more the quirks of our ears and brains. And so it's not like we're writing the rules, but we're discovering the rules.
Yes, it is a lot like that. Though I would argue that poetry is a little bit like that as well, because
That's
a lot
true.
of, a lot of people talk about how iambic pentameter is like a heartbeat.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
There is a very good reason as to why there's 5.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember what it is, but it's something
Right.
to do with just mathematically, rhythmically, it feels like da-dum, 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 da-dum. Like if it just feels finished.
That's cool.
Honestly, there's like so much more maths and sort of instinct within art than I think we realise.
That's very true. It's very true. Brief aside, and you might not know this, but if anyone at all does, what the hell is the golden ratio?
Oh, isn't that the...
It's that spiral thing that is a meme because people just put it on any picture and say art.
Well, do you have no idea what it is?
Genuinely no idea.
Oh, okay.
I am that dude who puts it on a picture at random and says,
Right, no, so
art.
what it is, it's based on, I think, Leonardo da Vinci's theories of art. I'm not sure if it is Da Vinci, but I think it's Da Vinci. And it's the science of visual art, in the same way that sounds nice to us. The golden ratio is when a picture is laid out in a way that all looks right. So I think it's that spiral, isn't it? So it's basically
Isn't it the Fibonacci sequence? Whatever that is.
It is. I think it might be to do with the Fibonacci
Emma's
sequence.
nodding vigorously next to me, so...
Yes. Yeah, I think it is. And so basically it's to do with the fact that, in a picture, it looks like that, doesn't it? Sort of...
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's like
it's meant to be more in this area and less in that area, and it's just one of those things where he sort of worked out what looks aesthetically pleasing.
Okay. We have a
bit like how in photography people will talk about thirds, the rules of thirds.
Yeah.
It's like that, but a little bit more complex.
Right.
So sometimes when they do the meme, it is actually right, because it does happen to be in the golden ratio, and you're like, why does this random photo of people falling over on the street look so weirdly pleasing? And it's because it just happens to be in the golden ratio.
Excellent. There's a quotation from Supernova, I think is very small text, so I think that's how it's written. In mathematics, 2 quantities are in the golden ratio if their ratio is the same as the ratio of their sum to the larger of the 2 quantities.
Yes.
Math is even more beyond me than music.
Well, this is the funny thing, that maths and music actually goes really well. And if you've ever noticed how many musicians have physics degrees, it's because maths and... Yeah, like Brian May, he's an astrophysicist, isn't he? And there's quite a few others. I think one of the people in Muse has a degree in physics. Maths and music are absolutely... Because, when I was talking about frequencies and I was talking about patterns, all of these patterns and numbers, it's really mathematical.
Oh. So if anyone says, learn music, it's not rocket science, then...
Yeah, they should try and do grade 5 theory. I like barely passed because I couldn't be bothered. I actually had quite good at it, but in the exam I just could not be asked. In fact, in the exam I had to transcribe, which is when you take a piece of music that's written in a certain key and you have to write it in another key. And you have to work out, because it's all about patterns. It's the exact same piece of music, just in a different key. And so it's just about understanding how the patterns work and how to then put it into a different key. And I didn't do very well because I got it really down, and then somehow in the exam I just completely forgot how to do it and just did something completely rubbish. And I was like, I was using an awful lot of double sharps, and my teacher was like, yeah, that doesn't sound right.
Oh, I see. So we've covered. I sort of basically described the keys, and then you've got your notes, of which
chords.
Goes. Okay.
How chords work in a key.
Okay, so you got your chords, which are combinations, theoretically infinite combinations of notes that work within the agreed set that is the key. And so
I mean, it is. No, that's absolutely right. The only thing, no, you're completely right. The only thing that is important to note is that obviously you can go outside of that set because you want to sound funky. So I can be doing this and it all sounds fine, and then I'll go, and it doesn't necessarily sound that bad. It kind of sounds a bit cool.
Yeah, because with what is sharp and flat and minor and major in terms of chords? Oh, that was a good noise.
Sharp and flat is actually just. I'll tell you what they're like. Do you know what I mean by a qualifier in language, in linguistics?
Vaguely, yeah.
So when you say something is blue, that's saying it's an adjective. When you say it's very blue, the very is a qualifier.
Right.
The sharps and flats are a little bit like qualifiers because you've got G, but then you get G sharp and G flat.
Okay.
Right? That's kind of a way to think about it.
Right. So
in terms of
essentially the same sound, but with this tweak.
No, well, that's not quite the right way to think of it because they are notes in their own right.
Oh, okay.
Like each one of these is a note. Right. It's just that in terms of how we've named them, some of them don't get their own title. Basically, some of them get qualified.
Bit rude, but
it is a bit rude.
Yeah.
And in terms of how the chords work with that, you know how I was talking about bass notes and how the chords named after the bass note.
Mm-hmm.
That's because any note can be a bass note. So that's when you end up with F sharp chord major, and G sharp major, or E flat major.
Okay, right. That satisfies me.
And minor chords, because you did ask what minors were. That's the on-purpose accidentals. Now, if I really wanted to get technical, I could go into relative majors and minors, and that's all to do with like how you write out keys and basically how you write down music. But when you're talking about what it sounds like, it's basically just a major key with some things that have gone a bit wrong on purpose. So instead of playing C major, you play C minor, and it's that note that's gone down. Or like that.
Okay.
Minor keys are kind of difficult to explain in terms of theory, so that's the most I'm going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Excellent. So what else? What next? What should I?
So it was how chords work within, which you got absolutely right, and then the final thing was just how do you recognize a key change?
It sounds the same but different.
Yeah.
Pretty much, it sounds like what you've been hearing in the previous part of the song, except it can go down, but typically it's just shifted up. And the reason for that is fun. You just want to have some fun.
And as Amel said, actually, it's very often to be like, look how clever I am and look how high I can sing. That's definitely the case with Beyonce, because she's just like, and she's going super high each time. And so,
excellent. So what I've learned today is that Beyonce is a show-off.
She is a massive show-off. Such a show-off, but we love her.
Yeah. So if you mentioned how when people sing along with that song, they often struggle to get that high, and obviously some people just can't get that high because they haven't got that much range. But could that be because they're starting too high, or would that not?
So, not exactly, because they're going to be singing along with Beyonce.
Yeah, right.
So the melody, I don't know, I can't play the melody on the piano, but say the melody is, you're going to sing da 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 da. You're not going to sing da da da.
Right.
But you could sing da 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 da, but you're going to sing da 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 because it's up there, and that's what sounds right.
Is that brief? So is that what a harmony is? If like it's the same thing but it's two different, and you just play them together and you get a harmony?
That was an octave, so it's not a very good harmony.
Right.
A harmony is if the tune was, if you wanted to sing in harmony, you would go. That would be a bad choice of harmony, but that's wait. There we go. That's better.
So essentially, if you've got specifically with singing, if you had two people singing in harmony, why? First of all, like, what would that sound like, and why would they decide to do it?
Okay, because it sounds pretty.
Nice.
That's the main thing. But to be singing in harmony is just. So a melody is when you have a single note, right? And you have single notes in succession to make a series of notes that sound nice in order.
Yeah.
When you start singing notes together, you're making mini chords. So that's kind of, I mean, so if you were to have three people singing in harmony, you would get that. It's a chord. But you'll very often you have two people. And it's just that they're singing two notes at the same time that sound nice together.
Right.
And that's what I was saying earlier when you were like, oh, it's like rhyming. I was a little bit hesitant because I would consider that rhyming.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're not the same. It's not the same note, but they sound nice together. They rhyme in a way. Whereas these notes are the same note. They're just, I mean, there's just not a literature equivalent.
I suppose I've forgotten the word for it now, but when two words are, say, spelt the same, but mean something different, or the other way around.
Yes, that would be a good metaphor, I think, because it's like it's the same, but it's not quite the same. It's tear and tear. It's the same. It's not the same. And
you can use that in poetry for a lot of different things. But if you were to end a rhyming couplet with, why can't I remember the technical term? There's an excellent rap, actually. If I was to point you in a direction from this, because I think it's brilliant. So there's this guy called Dan Bull, who I think it's like every week, which is an impressive turnout rate. He does a rap about a video game.
Wow.
And aside from just really gaming that YouTube algorithm, he's also an incredibly impressive lyricist.
Mm-hmm.
And on a whim, when he was making this one about a driving game called The Crew, if you want to search it, he decided to make, instead of rhyming, he would make every line end in the same words, but those words would have a different meaning, or he would tweak the rules a little bit and make them just the same sounds in different words. So it was technically rhyming, but he was saying the same thing. You get me?
Yeah, no.
And so that could be an accurate metaphor.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't try to remember what you actually asked now. So you asked about harmonies, weren't you? Yeah, I think that's basically it. It's when you sing two notes at the same time, or three notes, or 17 notes, or 47 if you're Thomas Tallis.
That's impressive.
It's an absolutely incredible medieval piece where he has how many pieces? No, it's 40, not 47. 40 separate melodies that all are sung at the same time, but it's Spem in Allium by Thomas Tallis. That's where I'm going to send you because it's the greatest piece of music ever written. Absolutely amazing. But don't listen to it by the 16. I'll tweet it out afterwards because there's particular versions you need to listen to.
Do the same with the
so yeah, you can technically, because this is That's all harmonies, technically. But you know, when two people sing together, they're probably going to be singing something like that because that sounds really nice. Wait, isn't that Rugrats actually?
Yeah, that was Rugrats.
Yeah, that's
Da, 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 da. No, that's Emmerdale.
I remember we did this in music class because it was really simple. So these are called thirds, in terms of how far apart they are. And yeah,
oh, cool.
That's harmony, and it just sounds pretty. Just sounds pretty.
Right. Well, thank you for being my music teacher for the past hour and 15 minutes.
Blimey, we went on a bit.
Yeah, right, honestly. But it was all incredibly interesting.
Oh, I'm glad.
Thank you. I'm sure I shall continue this, I guess, in terms of like doing live streams with people who know more than me about cool things.
That would be really cool, and I'd be up for that.
Hell yeah. I have realized that Emma, who is sat next to me right now, decided to start a video series a while back called I Don't Know Anything, where she interviews people about their talents and hobbies and gets them to teach her
I mean,
the
I barely
things.
ever make videos, so.
Yeah, that's true. She's not a YouTuber anymore, so it's fine. But, you know, I have no original ideas. It's great.
Originality is dead. 2K.
Yeah, we're all good. Again, thank you. Do you want to give people an idea of who you are, what you do, and where they can find you?
Sure. So I'm Izzy Inkpen, and I'm Izzy Inkpen on everything. That's IZZY. I am a poet and a theatre maker wannabe, and I also do make music. I haven't made music in a while just because this year I was focusing on my poetry and my dance, but I'm hoping to upload some original songs over the next 2 months or so. So yeah, if you want to go to my channel and subscribe, you can check it out, and yeah, and you can listen to all of my chords.
Every single chord.
Every single one.
That is your mission now. Make an album using every single chord.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. Oh no, but no, that's impossible. But if I would, you could do it with like the basic chords.
Yeah, a reasonable version of what I just said.
Okay.
That would be a project. Hell yeah, that was really cool. And you've got for anyone who's more local than the internet, you have something coming up, I think.
Oh yeah, I have a show in London. It is called Run Softly. It's along the river, and it's about the river. Well, it's about literature about the river, and it goes all the way from Old English to modern day, and it's all like how the Thames has changed through time from human population, basically. So yeah, that is next week.
It's gonna be fantastic. I guarantee it. I personally guarantee it. So if it's not fantastic, you can take it up with me, not Izzy.
There we go.
So, there we go. Yeah. Brilliant. Links to everything will, of course, be in the description. We'll tweet things out as well. Links to our Twitters will be in the description. I'm a professional at this. I know what I'm doing. It's great. It's fantastic.
I mean, I'm the one who's just doing a funky chicken dance. So.
Hell yeah. Right. If you, the audience, have any ideas what maybe I should talk about in future editions of this live stream, if you have an idea for who I should talk to, if you want Izzy back talking about dance, because I know nothing about dance, then holler at your boy.
I would love to do that. I'm just like, how would I demonstrate?
We'll find a way. That'd be brilliant. Thank you all for watching. Thank you again, Izzy, for joining, and thank you, Emma, for playing Overwatch in the background. I hope the infuriated under your breath curses haven't distracted people too much.
Sorry.
This has been Greg making technically a video on YouTube for the first time in a while. Imagine that.
Who? Greg? Who? What?
I don't know. I've never heard of him. Certainly. Right. I always never know when exactly to end these broadcasts because I'm like, oh, we can all say goodbyes. But
I've closed the piano. I feel like that's a good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Thank you for
bye.
tuning
Yeah.
in.
And stop the broadcast button.